Imagine an empire that spanned 6 centuries, from the heart of Anatolia to the gates of Vienna, ruling over 3 continents. A dynasty that witnessed the rise and fall of empires, forged alliances, waged wars, and transformed the world as we know it. This is the story of the Ottoman Empire. But behind the glory, power, and mystique of this legendary empire lie the lives of 36 sultans, each one a link in the chain of history. From the visionary Osman I, whose dreams sparked a new era, to the final collapse under the rule of Mehmed VI, we'll explore every triumph, every tragedy, and every twist of fate that shaped this extraordinary empire. Join me as we journey through time, unraveling the legacy of these rulers, their ambitions, their battles, and the indelible mark they left on history. This is the full history of the Ottoman Empire, through the eyes of its sultans, and it all starts now. The year is 1258. The Mongol hordes have ravaged the east, leaving nothing but smoke and ruin in their wake. The once mighty Seljuk Sultanate of rum teeters on the brink of collapse, shattered by internal strife and external pressures. In the west, the Byzantine Empire, the last bastion of Christian Rome, is a fading star, casting its final rays across the crumbling cities of Anatolia. And yet, in the midst of this chaos, from a small tribe of nomadic Turks, a leader arises. A man whose name would echo across continents and centuries. His life would be the genesis of an empire that would reshape the world. Osman Gazi. This is not the story of a single man. This is the tale of a vision, of dreams whispered in the night, of battles fought in fire and blood. The rise of Osman Gazi is the rise of a people, a vision of conquest, of fate intertwined with faith. Join us as we unravel the life of Osman Gazi, founder of the Ottoman Empire, warrior of destiny, and the man who transformed the tides of history forever. Osman Gazi's story begins in the heart of Anatolia, in a small village called Sogut. Born in 1258 into the Kai tribe, part of the Oghuz Turks, Osman entered a world on the edge of destruction and opportunity. His father, Ertugrul Bey, was the leader of the Kai, a tribe that had migrated westward, fleeing the terror of the Mongol invasions that had swept through Central Asia. From an early age, Osman was exposed to the life of a warrior. The Kai tribe was small, but resilient. Like other nomadic Turkish tribes, they had mastered the art of survival on the steppe. Horse riding, archery, and guerrilla warfare. These skills would later define the Ottoman military, but for Osman it was simply a way of life. Yet, his youth was not marked by battle alone. In the village of Sogut, Osman learned not only to wield a sword, but also the importance of leadership, unity, and diplomacy. His father, Ertugrul, was not just a warrior, he was a statesman who navigated the treacherous politics of the Seljuk Sultanate and the Byzantine Empire. Ertugrul's ability to forge alliances with both the declining Seljuks and the embattled Byzantines ensured the survival of the Kai in an increasingly hostile world. Osman learned these lessons well, and they would shape his approach to leadership. But there was more to Osman's upbringing than politics and war. His spiritual mentor, Sheikh Edebali, would impart the values and religious zeal that would guide him throughout his life. Sheikh Edebali, a prominent religious leader, became a father figure to Osman. Edebali's teachings were rooted in Islam, but they also emphasized justice, humility, and the divine destiny that awaited those who served the righteous cause. These ideals took root in Osman's heart, blending with his ambition to unite the fractured lands of Anatolia under one banner. And then, there was the dream. It was during one such night in the home of Sheikh Edebali that Osman had a dream. A dream that would define not only his future but the future of an entire empire. In his dream, Osman saw a moon rising from the chest of Sheikh Edebali, entering his own. From his body, a great tree emerged, its roots spreading across the world, its branches casting shade over vast lands, from the east to the west. When Osman shared his dream with Edebali, the Sheikh interpreted it as a divine sign. He foretold that Osman and his descendants were destined to rule a great empire that would spread across the world. It was a vision of divine purpose, one that would fuel Osman's rise from a small tribal leader to the founder of the Ottoman dynasty. To understand Osman's rise, we must first understand the world he inherited. In the 13th century, Anatolia was a battleground. The once powerful Seljuk Sultanate of Rum was crumbling, torn apart by internal divisions and external threats. The Mongols had shattered its authority, and various Turkish beyliks, or small principalities, were emerging from its ruins. Meanwhile, the Byzantine Empire, once the greatest Christian empire in the world, was in terminal decline. Its armies were weakened, its borders shrinking. Civil wars and external threats had reduced it to a shadow of its former self. To the north, the Mongols threatened to overrun everything. To the south, the Mamluks of Egypt kept a close watch, and in between lay the small, yet growing, Turkish tribes that were beginning to assert their independence. This chaotic backdrop was the world Osman was born into, a fractured landscape where opportunity lurked in the ruins of once great empires. Osman understood that in this world of decay and fragmentation, the future belonged not to the strongest, but to the most cunning. He saw opportunity where others saw chaos. After the vision of his dream, Osman Ghazi's ambitions grew. He knew that to fulfill his destiny, he needed to expand his influence beyond the modest borders of his tribe's lands. His first targets were the small, vulnerable Byzantine outposts that dotted the frontier of Anatolia. The Byzantine Empire was but a shadow of its former self. Its outposts in Anatolia were poorly defended, isolated from the core of the empire, and led by local governors who lacked the resources to maintain control. Osman saw an opportunity. These outposts were not only strategically vital, but vulnerable. By taking them, he could create a buffer zone around his own lands and project his power over the region. Osman's strategy was simple yet effective. He did not launch large-scale assaults on heavily fortified cities, but rather focused on smaller, more vulnerable Byzantine forts. His guerrilla tactics, combined with the speed and mobility of his mounted warriors, allowed him to strike quickly and retreat before the enemy could organize a counterattack. One of Osman's first significant victories came in the late 13th century when he captured the fortress of Kulakahizar. This small but strategically located fort was the gateway to Byzantine territory. Its capture marked the beginning of Osman's rise as a powerful leader in the region. This fortress, though small in comparison to the great cities of the Byzantine Empire, was of immense strategic importance. It sat on a key route between the Byzantine heartlands and the fragmented Turkish beyliks. Whoever controlled Kulakahizar could control the flow of trade and troops in the region. Osman's strategy was based on precision and patience. Rather than launching a full-scale assault that could cost the lives of many of his warriors, he opted for a siege. His men surrounded the fortress, cutting off supplies and reinforcements. The defenders, isolated and under pressure, could only wait as their food and water supplies dwindled. Weeks passed, and the pressure on the Byzantine defenders mounted. They attempted to send messengers to nearby outposts, begging for reinforcements, but Osman's forces intercepted them every time. Slowly, the fortress's defenders began to lose hope. When the time came for the final attack, Osman's forces struck swiftly and decisively. Under the cover of darkness, his warriors scaled the weakened walls, catching the Byzantines off guard. By morning, the fortress had fallen, and Osman stood victorious. The fall of Kulakahizar marked a significant turning point in the rise of Osman Ghazi. More than just a military victory, it demonstrated Osman's strategic brilliance and ability to outmaneuver his enemies. His triumph sent shockwaves through the neighboring Byzantine governors, revealing that Osman was no ordinary tribal leader. His ambitions were far greater. With a vision that extended beyond mere raids, he sought to unite the fractured Turkish tribes and lay the foundation of a new power in Anatolia. Osman's victories, particularly at Kulakahizar, bolstered his prestige not only among his own people but also among other Turkish beyliks and tribes. Attracted by the prospect of glory and wealth under Osman's leadership, many rallied to his side, drawn to the emerging legend of Osman Ghazi. However, Osman's rise was not solely due to his military prowess. He understood that alliances were essential to building lasting power. One of the most pivotal relationships Osman cultivated was with Sheikh Edebali, a prominent religious leader whose support gave him legitimacy in the eyes of other Muslim leaders. This alliance, both spiritual and political, helped solidify Osman's claim to leadership. Additionally, Osman maintained connections with the remnants of the Seljuk Sultanate, reinforcing his authority and laying the groundwork for the future Ottoman state. The significance of Kulakahizar went beyond territorial conquest. While the victory secured control over the surrounding region and instilled fear in the remaining Byzantine outposts, it also marked Osman's transformation from a mere tribal chieftain to a ruler with a greater purpose. His conquests were no longer just about plunder, but about settlement and governance, as he began establishing the foundations of what would eventually become the Ottoman Empire. Osman's army, composed primarily of Ghazis, warriors fighting in the name of Islam, was not merely a band of raiders. It was a disciplined and highly motivated force driven by both the promise of spoils and religious fervor. These men saw themselves as part of a holy war against the Christian Byzantines, drawn from across the Turkish world to fight for Osman's cause. Their victories were not only for Osman but for the spread of Islam, and they believed that they were part of a divine mission. Osman himself was more than a military leader. He was regarded as a champion of the faith, chosen by God to lead the Turks in their struggle. His famous dream, in which he saw a tree spreading across the world, was interpreted by many of his followers as a sign that his conquests were divinely ordained. This perception of divine favor strengthened Osman's position, inspiring devotion among his followers and adding to the momentum behind his growing power. In every battle and conquest, Osman's vision of uniting the Turkish tribes and creating a new era in Anatolia became more tangible. The fall of Kulakahizar was not just another raid, it was a declaration that Osman's rise to power was inevitable, as was the emergence of the empire that would carry his name. Under Osman's leadership, the Ghazis became more than just soldiers. They were part of a movement that would sweep across Anatolia, laying the foundations for an empire that would one day stretch from the heart of Europe to the deserts of Arabia. The strength of Osman's army lay not only in its numbers but in its speed and mobility. The Ghazis were expert horsemen, able to strike quickly and disappear into the mountains before their enemies could retaliate. This style of warfare, honed over centuries by the nomadic Turks, would become a hallmark of Ottoman military tactics in the centuries to come. With each victory, more warriors flocked to Osman's banner, swelling the ranks of his army. And with each victory, Osman's reputation as a leader of destiny grew. In the early dawn of 1302, Osman Ghazi faced one of his most formidable challenges yet. The Battle of Baphius. It was not just another skirmish but a confrontation that would define his legacy. As rumors of his rapid expansion spread, the Byzantine Empire recognized Osman as a growing threat. In response, they assembled a considerable force, determined to crush the burgeoning power he represented before it could threaten the very heart of Byzantium. The battle commenced at midday, with Osman's forces charging bravely toward the Byzantine lines. The Ghazis, fueled by a fierce religious fervor and a desire for glory, pressed forward, their hearts pounding with the thrill of battle. Osman's strategy was to exploit the enemy's vulnerabilities and break their lines quickly. Initially, Osman's strategy seemed to pay off. His forces broke through the Byzantine lines, sending shockwaves through the enemy ranks. The speed and ferocity of the Ghazis caught the Byzantines off guard, and for a moment victory appeared within reach. However, the Byzantine forces were not to be underestimated. The general, realizing the critical situation, rallied his troops and launched a counteroffensive. With precision and coordination, they reorganized and struck back at Osman's flanks, encircling the Turkish forces and turning the tide of the battle. The tide of battle quickly shifted. What began as a promising offensive turned into a desperate struggle for survival. The Byzantine cavalry charged relentlessly, pushing Osman's men back, cutting them off from retreat. In the face of overwhelming numbers and superior tactics, the Ghazis found themselves in a perilous situation. Osman fought with unparalleled bravery, rallying his men, encouraging them to stand firm. But as the sun dipped lower in the sky, it became clear that this day would not belong to him. In a fierce and valiant effort, Osman managed to retreat with a fraction of his army, a bittersweet victory amid the echoes of defeat. The Battle of Baphius was a harsh lesson for Osman Ghazi, one that would shape his understanding of warfare and leadership in the years to come. Though the battle ended in defeat, Osman refused to let despair take root. Instead, he viewed the loss as an opportunity to learn and grow stronger. He began to understand that military might must be tempered with wisdom, strategy, and the ability to adapt. Gathering his remaining forces, Osman reflected on the battle. He recognized that victory would not come easily, it would require patience, cunning, and the unwavering support of his people. With renewed determination, he set forth to rebuild his strength, not only as a military leader but as a wise ruler. In the aftermath of the Battle of Baphius, Osman Ghazi recognized the need for a robust governance structure that would not only solidify his power but also earn the loyalty of his people. He understood that to build an empire, he must cultivate not just warriors but a thriving community. Osman began to implement a system of governance that balanced military strength with civic responsibility. He established councils made up of local leaders and wise men to address the needs and concerns of the populace. These councils played a crucial role in maintaining order and promoting trade and commerce throughout his growing territory. Trade flourished under Osman's rule, as he encouraged merchants to establish routes and open markets. The strategic location of Sogut, nestled among trade routes, allowed the region to thrive economically. By fostering an environment conducive to trade, Osman strengthened the economic backbone of his nascent empire. Education and knowledge became cornerstones of Osman's governance. He established schools and sought out scholars, promoting learning as a means to enrich the lives of his people. By encouraging the exchange of ideas, Osman nurtured a culture of innovation and intellectual growth that would become a hallmark of the Ottoman Empire. Central to his rule was a commitment to justice. Osman believed that a fair and just ruler would win the loyalty of his subjects. He was known for his equitable treatment of both Muslims and non-Muslims, seeking to foster harmony among the diverse communities that inhabited his lands. His reputation for fairness would become legendary, earning him the respect and love of his people. As he laid the foundations for governance, Osman Ghazi was also aware of the greater historical forces at play. The remnants of the Byzantine Empire were still present, and as he expanded his influence, he knew that challenges would arise. Yet, armed with the lessons learned from his past, he was ready to face them. As the years passed, Osman Ghazi continued to lead his people with wisdom and strength. However, the relentless march of time began to weigh heavily upon him. In 1326, as he neared the end of his life, Osman reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment, the struggles, the victories, and the dreams that had guided him. On his deathbed, Osman called for his sons and trusted advisors. He understood that his legacy would be defined not only by his conquests, but by the character and vision he passed on to the next generation. In those final moments, he imparted words of wisdom, urging them to uphold the principles of justice, unity, and resilience that he had fought so hard to establish. Osman's son Orhan stood ready to inherit the mantle of leadership. With his father's blessings, Orhan would carry forth the vision of a united empire. Osman's teachings would guide him as he sought to expand and strengthen the fledgling state. Though Osman Ghazi did not live to witness the full realization of his dreams, his legacy was undeniable. Under Orhan's leadership, the Ottomans would capture Bursa in 1326, establishing it as the first capital of the Ottoman Empire. The foundations laid by Osman would prove pivotal in the empire's subsequent expansion. The empire Osman founded would go on to dominate vast territories, becoming one of the most influential empires in history. His vision of unity and strength would inspire generations, shaping the identity of the Ottoman Empire and influencing the course of world history. Osman Ghazi's life story is one of resilience, ambition, and unwavering determination. From humble beginnings as a tribal leader to the founder of a vast empire, his journey is a testament to the power of dreams and the spirit of a leader who dared to defy the odds. Osman Ghazi's legacy endures, a beacon of inspiration for future generations. His story teaches us that every great empire begins with a dream, a vision that, when nurtured with determination and faith, can change the course of history. Sultan Osman I passed away in 1323 CE, leaving behind a principality that would evolve into one of the greatest empires in history. His vision and leadership laid the cornerstone for the Ottoman Empire, a beacon of prosperity and diversity. After the death of Osman I, the fledgling Ottoman Empire stood at a crossroads. It was his son Orhan I who would inherit not only his father's vision, but also the mantle of leadership over a realm hungry for expansion and stability. Born in 1281, Orhan was raised in the crucible of early Ottoman struggles against Byzantine and neighboring emirates. His early years were marked by the lessons of his father's military campaigns and the wisdom imparted by the founding sultan himself. Orhan I ascended to the throne in 1323, inheriting a realm that stretched from the fertile plains of Bithynia to the strategic stronghold of Bursa. His reign would be defined by both military conquests and administrative reforms. Under Orhan's leadership, the Ottoman Empire expanded its territories deeper into Anatolia and beyond. Cities such as Nicomedia and Nicaea fell to Ottoman hands, solidifying their dominance in the region. Culturally, Orhan I patronized the arts and oversaw the construction of significant architectural marvels, including mosques and public works that laid the foundation for the grandeur of future Ottoman achievements. Yet challenges loomed large. Orhan navigated intricate alliances and rivalries among neighboring states, balancing diplomacy with decisive military action to ensure the stability and growth of his empire. Orhan I's legacy extends beyond territorial expansion. His governance laid the groundwork for the Ottoman administrative system, blending tribal traditions with centralized authority, a model that would endure for centuries. As we reflect on the reign of Orhan I, we witness the birth of a dynasty that would shape the course of history. Sultan Orhan I passed away in 1362, leaving behind a legacy of expansion, cultural growth, and governance. His reign laid the groundwork for the Ottoman Empire's rise to greatness. As the Ottomans bid farewell to their beloved Sultan Orhan I, the weight of succession falls upon his son, Murad. Stepping into the footsteps of greatness, Murad I would not only continue his father's legacy, but also shape the empire's destiny in ways unforeseen. Murad, born amidst the splendor of Bursa, inherited not only the throne but the mantle of leadership during a crucial era of Ottoman expansion. His reign, marked by a potent blend of military acumen and statesmanship, would pave the way for future sultans. Under Murad's strategic vision, the Ottoman Empire surged forth, consolidating its foothold in Anatolia and advancing deep into the Balkans. From the shores of the Aegean to the rugged mountains of Thrace, his armies carved a path of conquest and consolidation. Amidst the clamor of battle, Murad was also a patron of the arts and sciences, fostering a cultural renaissance that blossomed within the Ottoman courts. Artists, poets, and scholars found refuge and support, enriching the empire's cultural tapestry. Yet, the path to glory was fraught with challenges. Murad faced fierce resistance from rival powers and internal dissent. His resolve was tested time and again, forging him into a leader of unwavering determination. Victory is not measured by conquest alone, but by the unity and prosperity we bring to our lands. Let our banners fly high, for our empire is built on strength and justice. As the sun sets on Murad I's reign, his legacy endures. His military prowess expanded the Ottoman borders, his patronage enriched the cultural fabric, and his wisdom steered the empire through turbulent times. Murad I departed this world, leaving behind a realm stronger and more unified than ever before. His legacy, etched in the annals of Ottoman history, serves as a beacon of inspiration for generations to come. Tragically, Sultan Murad I met his end on the battlefield in 1389, during the Battle of Kosovo. His death marked a profound loss for the empire, yet his legacy continued to shape its destiny. The year is 1389. The battlefield of Kosovo stands silent, yet echoes with the cries of victory and loss. Sultan Murad I, the Lion of Rumelia, lies slain, his legacy a tapestry of conquest and unity. Amidst the grief and uncertainty, his son rises to lead the dawn of a new era under Sultan Bayezid I. Born around 1354 in Anatolia, Bayezid witnessed firsthand the transformative reign of his father. Raised amidst the clash of empires and the forging of a formidable state, he inherited not only a kingdom, but a vision. In the years following Kosovo, the Ottoman Empire would experience a strange fate. Under Sultan Murad's successor Bayezid I, they would enter the 15th century more powerful than they had ever been. But within a decade, the empire was on the verge of being dismantled. Sultan Murad's assassination at the Battle of Kosovo in 1389 meant that a new sultan had to take his place. His son Bayezid immediately took the reins of control, executing his brother Yak on the battlefield. Deservedly nicknamed Yildirim, meaning thunderbolt, Bayezid's reign was an active one, filled with military campaigns and conquest. His father's death was interpreted as an opportunity by some of the Anatolian Beyliks to move against the increasingly powerful and aggressive Ottomans. So Bayezid spent the first 3 years of his reign campaigning against his fellow Turkic Beyliks. With the help of soldiers provided by his Christian vassals, he was able to take over all of Western Anatolia. This expansion benefited the Ottomans economically, as they now had greater control of the land and sea trade routes that connected east and west. After making peace with the powerful Karamanid Beylik, Bayezid set his focus on Europe. At the same time, in 1394, Constantinople was put under siege by the Ottomans for the first time. Being caught in the middle of their territories, Constantinople would have been the logical choice for an Ottoman capital. In the Balkans, Bayezid quickly annexed Bulgaria and Macedonia, and he even threatened to move beyond the Danube River. This alarmed the Hungarians, who at the time were a great power in their own right. At the behest of various parties, a crusade was organized in 1396 to stem the advance of the Ottomans. The Crusader forces, led by King Sigismund of Hungary, were decisively defeated at the Battle of Nicopolis. Victory meant that Ottoman control of the Balkans south of the Danube River was undisputed. Commemorating the victory, Bayezid commissioned the Great Mosque of Bursa, the first in a long list of magnificent mosques that would come to form an enduring aspect of the Ottomans' legacy. Once the Balkans were neutralized, Bayezid resumed his campaign against the Baliks of eastern Anatolia. In around 1398, he turned his attention to the two most powerful ones, the Karamanids and Eretna of Qadi Burhanuddin. Bayezid soon annexed both to the Ottoman realm. It has to be noted that all this tremendous growth was thanks in part to the devshirme, the system of youth levy imposed on its Christian subjects. As part of this, young boys would forcibly be taken away and recruited into the Ottoman administration and military. The famed Janissary infantry unit was formed out of this system. Whilst there is evidence to suggest that the Ottoman practice of youth levies had existed earlier, it was really in the reign of Bayezid that it was institutionalized. Sultan Bayezid's expansion into eastern Anatolia opened up the prospect of a conflict with the great Turco-Mongolian conqueror, Timur, who at the turn of the 15th century was on campaign in Syria against the Mamluks. Timur viewed himself as the successor to the Mongol Ilkhanate dynasty's claim over Anatolia. The imperial ambitions of both men made an eventual conflict somewhat inevitable. Tensions culminated at the epic Battle of Ankara in 1402, where Timur's forces prevailed over the Ottomans and even managed to capture Sultan Bayezid. The beleaguered Sultan would die in captivity a few months later. Most of the Beyliks annexed by Bayezid now became independent again, and the impending Ottoman takeover of Constantinople was delayed by 50 years. But the true significance of the Battle of Ankara was that it immediately brought about one of the most destructive episodes in Ottoman history, the Ottoman Interregnum. A civil war that lasted 11 years, it saw four of Bayezid's sons contest the throne. Isa, Suleiman, Mehmed, and Musa all fought until only one was left. The war experienced various twists and turns. Isa was knocked out at the start of the conflict. Subsequently, the eldest brother, Suleiman, was in the ascendancy until 1410, but he passed on his authority to Musa, who defeated and executed him. Musa was then defeated by Mehmed in 1413, and the new sultan began to piece the empire back together. In Anatolia, Mehmed was unable to exert an aggressive policy towards the Baliks, fearing disapproval from Timur's son and successor, Shahrukh. In Europe, the Christian Balkan states acted independently and had even regained some land back. But fortunately for the Ottomans, their Balkan rivals could not effectively take advantage of their weakness, meaning that their position in Rumelia remained fairly strong. So why were the Ottomans able to survive a politically traumatic experience like an 11-year-long civil war? The most convincing answer has been offered by the esteemed Turkish historian Halil İnalcık, who argued that it was because of the system of central government which provided the Ottoman state with a strong infrastructure that could thus withstand the shock of the civil war. The slaves turned administrators that were developed from the devshirme system offered the dynasty a level of continuity and stability even as the civil war raged on. Sultan Mehmed's death in 1421 brought about a succession that showed that the ghosts of the Ottoman civil war were still alive. Mehmed was succeeded by his young son Murad II, who immediately had to contend with his uncle Mustafa for the throne. Mustafa had been held by the Byzantine Emperor Manuel II, who enjoyed a slight resurgence of his authority in the aftermath of the Battle of Ankara. Partly due to the Byzantine policy of keeping Ottoman claimants to the throne and then releasing them at opportune times so that the ensuing divisions could wreak havoc on their Turkish foes. Murad's uncle, although considered by the Ottomans to be an impostor, was able to take control of Rumelia and looked poised to knock his nephew off the throne. Mustafa had the support of various prominent Muslim frontier warrior leaders in the Balkans, who had been essential in the expansion of the Ottoman realm into Christian territories. But at times they grew disillusioned by the Ottoman efforts to centralize its authority over territories that the frontier warriors had conquered with the Ottomans. In 1422, Murad I was able to defeat his uncle and executed him. But his internecine woes were not over. In the same year, he decided to punish the Byzantines for their meddling in Ottoman affairs by putting Constantinople under siege. The Anatolian Baliks, fond of their newfound independence, saw this as an opportunity to deal a blow to the Ottomans. Murad's younger brother, who was also called Mustafa and had fled to the Karamanids upon his father's death, was encouraged by various Baliks to stake his claim for the throne. Equipped with an army, he besieged Bursa, thus forcing Murad to call off his siege of Constantinople and deal with his little brother. Shortly thereafter, Murad defeated and strangled his younger brother to death. In the mid-1420s, Murad put an end to all the Baliks of Western Anatolia by annexing them for the last time. Having thus consolidated his rule, Sultan Murad II now shifted his focus to the Balkans. After reconquering the city of Thessaloniki in 1430 from the Venetians, much of Murad's focus in the region revolved around a rivalry with Hungary. Serbia, a longtime vassal, was annexed into the Ottoman realm in 1439. In the background to this, renewed efforts had been made by various parties in Christendom for a crusade against the Ottomans. In 1439, the centuries-long schism between Catholicism and Orthodox Christianity was officially ended. This Christian optimism led to the Crusade of Varna in 1443. Originally starting well for the Crusaders, the multinational coalition soon slowed down when a visible disconnect began to emerge between the Balkan states and the Western Christian Crusaders. This resulted in the Balkan Christians agreeing to a truce with the Sultan in the summer of 1444. Sultan Murad immediately followed this up by crossing into Anatolia and making peace with the Karamanids. With both his eastern and western frontiers secured, Sultan Murad remarkably decided to abdicate in favor of his 12-year-old son, Mehmed II. Sensing an opportunity, the Hungarians immediately reneged on the truce. The Ottoman Grand Vizier, Kandali Halil Pasha, recalled the retired Sultan, who duly responded by marching straight to the battlefield at Varna on the Rumelian coast of the Black Sea. At the subsequent Battle of Varna, the Ottomans defeated the Christian coalition and Murad went back into his retirement. His second retirement was only a little longer than his first one. The young Sultan Mehmed's decision to debase the currency drew widespread negative reactions, especially from those employed by the state such as the Janissaries. So in 1446, once again at the request of the Grand Vizier, Sultan Murad came back to take his crown. Despite the victory at Varna, Ottoman authority in the Balkans was still unstable. In Albania, Gjagja Kastrioti, also known as Skanderbeg, was in the beginning stages of his 25-year-long resistance against the Ottomans. Further north, the danger from the Hungarians had not been extinguished. Under the leadership of the energetic regent, John Hunyadi, Hungary organized a Christian coalition which had a showdown with Sultan Murad's forces at the fiercely contested Second Battle of Kosovo in 1389. The result was an Ottoman victory, and just like the first one. The implications were significant. The Balkans were pacified for the time being, and the fate of the iconic city, Constantinople, was sealed. Nobody was going to come to their rescue now. War-weary from constant conflict, Murad finally got the peace he wanted when he passed away in 1451. In an age of rising empires and clashing civilizations, one name carved itself into the very bedrock of history. A name that would shape the destiny of nations and alter the course of the world. This is the story of Sultan Mehmed II, forever known as Mehmed the Conqueror. Born into a world of power, ambition and treachery, Mehmed was more than just a ruler, he was a force of nature. From the moment he ascended the throne, he sought not only to inherit an empire but to expand it, to build a legacy that would defy time itself. At the tender age of 21, he achieved what many believed impossible. With unmatched brilliance and determination, he brought the 1,000-year-old walls of Constantinople crashing down, fulfilling the dreams of his ancestors and turning the city into the jewel of his empire. But Mehmed's story doesn't end with the fall of Byzantium. His life was marked by legendary rivalries and battles that would echo through the ages. Among them was his intense and brutal rivalry with Vlad the Impaler, known to the world as Dracula. Their confrontations were not merely about power, but a deadly chess game between two of the most fearsome minds of their time. As Mehmed expanded his empire, he also forged an identity that would haunt Europe and inspire awe across the world. From his daring military campaigns to his patronage of the arts and sciences, Mehmed was a man of complexity, both a fearsome warrior and a visionary statesman. He united lands, cultures and peoples under one banner, leaving a legacy that would forever change the course of history. The echoes of his conquests still resonate today, and his impact can be felt far beyond the borders of the empire he built. Join us as we delve into the life of the man who reshaped the world with his ambition, his intellect, and his iron will. Discover the legend of Mehmed the Conqueror, a ruler who not only seized the city but changed the fate of continents. If you're captivated by stories of power, intrigue, and the people who shaped our world, subscribe to Ancient Perspectives and embark on a journey through the ages. The past has never been closer. Born on March 30th, 1432, to Sultan Murad II and his concubine Huma Khatun, Mehmed was named in honor of his grandfather, Mehmed I. The future Sultan spent his formative years in the Ottoman capital of Edirne before being sent to Amasya, where he was groomed from a tender age in the art of governance and immersed in a comprehensive education. Under the guidance of his tutors, young Mehmed was schooled in religion, history, an array of foreign languages, and the extensive knowledge befitting the son of a sultan. His childhood, though typical for an Ottoman prince, was set on an extraordinary trajectory when he reached the age of 12. Sultan Murad II, Mehmed's father, was a ruler burdened by internal strife and external conflicts. His reign was fraught with challenges, both within the empire and from foreign adversaries, leading the 44-year-old Sultan to seek solace in retirement at Bursa, relinquishing the throne to his 12-year-old son in 1444. Thus began Mehmed II's initial experience as the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. Neither Mehmed nor those around him found comfort in the notion of a child ascending the throne amidst such turmoil. At 12, Mehmed was ill-prepared and unwilling to bear the weight of the empire's troubles. As threats from abroad loomed large and the Ottoman nobility faced a crisis, Sultan Mehmed, alongside his Grand Vizier Halil Kandala, penned urgent letters to the former Sultan, beseeching him to return to the throne he had forsaken. Mehmed's words to his father were sharp and resolute. If you are the Sultan, come and lead your armies. If I am the Sultan, the first hereby order you to come and lead my armies. Confronted with a command he could neither defy nor disregard, Murad returned to reclaim his throne, and Mehmed willingly stepped aside, allowing his father to resume control just in time for the Battle of Varna against the European Crusaders. Freed from the burdens of rulership, Mehmed refocused on his studies, gathering the knowledge and experience that would be indispensable when Murad II relinquished the throne for the second and final time following his death in 1451. With his ascension as an adult, Mehmed II was determined and ambitious, ready to implement a series of bold changes and initiatives. Inspired by the legendary exploits of Alexander the Great, the Sultan wasted no time in embarking on his grand plans. One of the defining strategies of Mehmed's reign was his remarkable policy of tolerance. Unlike many monarchs of his era, Mehmed displayed an extraordinary degree of religious tolerance towards his diverse imperial subjects. While he was intolerant of dissent and opposition to his authority, he embraced differing religious beliefs, which garnered him widespread support and cooperation across his empire. Moreover, Mehmed was known for his progressive policies that favored the less fortunate, often extending his benevolence to the lowest rungs of society. One of his most ingenious moves was redistributing lands from the nobility to the slave class, a tactic that not only secured loyalty from the lower classes, but also kept the powerful nobility in check. Mehmed's brilliance as a leader extended far beyond simply winning the loyalty of his people. He possessed a keen understanding of the importance of solidifying his authority, and he was determined to ensure that his power remained unchallenged. Unlike some of his 6 predecessors, Mehmed was not content to rely on the existing aristocracy. Instead, he sought to surround himself with men whose loyalty was unwavering, devoted solely to him and his cause. To achieve this, he established a more centralized and highly organized administration, designed to function as a unified and faithful entity. This allowed Mehmed the freedom to direct his attention beyond the borders of the Ottoman Empire, pursuing his broader ambitions. Great leaders like Mehmed, however, often have interests that reach beyond the realm of governance and warfare. For the 7th Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, the arts and literature were his true passions. Mehmed had a deep appreciation for classical literature and was captivated by the works of Renaissance artists. During his reign, he created a vast library that housed over 8,000 volumes in languages ranging from Arabic and Greek to Latin and Persian. His love for the arts was further demonstrated when he commissioned several Renaissance artists from the West. The most famous depiction of him, the portrait we recognize today, was painted by none other than Gentile Bellini. Mehmed's enthusiasm for foreign arts was not just a matter of personal taste, it was also fueled by his impressive linguistic abilities. He was fluent in multiple languages, including Latin, Greek, Persian, Serbian, Arabic, and Turkish. This linguistic prowess allowed him to engage with the cultural and intellectual achievements of diverse civilizations, enriching his own understanding and inspiring his reign. Yet, Mehmed II's education was not confined to the arts and languages. His intellectual curiosity knew no bounds. He was deeply interested in a wide array of subjects, including mathematics, astronomy, arithmetic, geography, philosophy, and religious theology. This breadth of knowledge made him a wise and cultured ruler, but Mehmed was more than just a scholar. Indeed, his legacy would be cemented by his military prowess, earning him the rightful title of the conqueror. The most renowned and significant of Mehmed's campaigns was the one that would forever change the course of history, the conquest of Constantinople. From the moment he ascended the throne, Mehmed was determined that it would be he who would finally bring the Byzantine capital under the control of the Muslim Empire, ending the era of Byzantium as the world had known it. Mehmed II was a man of resolve, where neither exceptions nor excuses had any place in his grand vision, and failure was a notion he would not entertain. With the Bosporus Straits already under his control and the construction of the formidable Rumelisari fortress standing opposite Anadoluisari, the Sultan was in no mood for delays. Constantinople, weakened by relentless plagues and repeated incursions, was ripe for the taking. The time had come. After swift and decisive preparations, Mehmed delivered an ominous ultimatum to the Byzantine emperor: surrender now, or your empire will be reduced to dust and ashes. It was a terrifying proclamation from a formidable imperial power, but despite the Sultan's imposing words, he was still a young ruler with much to prove, and the Byzantines were far from a feeble adversary. As Mehmed anticipated, Emperor Constantine XI Palaeologos dismissed the Ottoman demand. If Mehmed wanted Constantinople, he would have to fight for it. On April 2nd, 1453, the Ottoman Empire commenced its siege on the fading, yet still resilient, capital of the once great Byzantine Empire, the successor to Rome. Mehmed was resolute in ensuring this would be a victorious siege. He brought with him a vast army, estimated between 100,000 and 200,000 strong, supported by a naval force of over 300 vessels and a formidable array of up to 60 cannons. To prepare for this monumental assault, the Sultan had enlisted the talents of engineers and gunsmiths from across the region to craft his massive artillery, and now he was ready to unleash their might. The siege that followed was unlike anything the Byzantines had ever faced. For nearly 2 months, the full scope of Sultan Mehmed's ingenuity and strategic brilliance was on display. The colossal cannons thundered relentlessly, and in a stroke of genius, Mehmed ordered his naval ships to be transported overland along a path of greased logs, circumventing a critical Byzantine barrier. It was through these extraordinary efforts that Mehmed I was earning his title as the conqueror in a spectacular fashion. Finally, on May 29, 1453, the unthinkable happened. The illustrious capital of the Byzantine Empire fell, and with it, the last Byzantine emperor met his demise. Sultan Mehmed II had achieved what many before him could not. Constantinople was now his. Styling himself as the Caesar of the Roman Empire, Mehmed the Conqueror immediately turned his gaze to his next target, Serbia. Though the full subjugation of the Serbian Despotate would not be realized until the end of the 1450s, the Ottoman campaign in the region began the very year after Constantinople's conquest. Serbia had long been a vassal of the Ottoman Empire, so it was no surprise that Mehmed sought to consolidate his power there. However, it would ultimately be his great-grandson who would extend Ottoman control as far as Belgrade. Mehmed himself faced formidable resistance from John Hunyadi of Hungary, a challenge that forced the Sultan to shift his focus to other matters. While the fall of Constantinople had left only fragments of Byzantine territory intact, some remnants still persisted. Among these was the Despotate of Morea, a region the Ottomans had been entangled with for some time. Although the Despotate existed as an Ottoman vassal, its despots, Demetrius and his brother, proved to be inept rulers. The region was spiraling into unrest, and when the brothers of the late Byzantine emperor failed to pay their annual tribute to the Ottoman Sultan, Mehmed the Conqueror found the perfect pretext to launch a new campaign. By the summer of 1460, the Despotate of Morea had succumbed to the Ottoman Empire, a direct result of its rulers' incompetence and the Sultan's relentless ambition. Yet, Mehmed the Conqueror was far from finished. Morea was not the only lingering remnant of the once great Byzantine Empire. The nearby empire of Trebizond also had to be brought to its knees if Mehmed was to fully claim all that remained of Byzantium. With the fall of its allies and the Ottoman threat looming, the Emperor of Trebizond, David, understood the grim reality that any outside help would be difficult to come by. In a desperate bid to secure assistance, he sought to forge alliances with his eastern neighbors, hoping that these unconventional friendships might offer some form of protection. However, in a move that perhaps undermined his efforts, David attempted in 1460 to free Trebizond from its obligation to pay tribute to the Ottoman Sultan. He made this audacious request directly to Mehmed, hoping for leniency. But Mehmed was not one to entertain such pleas. His response came the following year in the form of a full-scale invasion of Trebizond. The eastern allies upon whom David had pinned his hopes proved to be of little help, and one, the ruler of Sinop, surrendered to the Ottomans as they marched toward Trebizond. As the Ottoman land forces and navy closed in, it became clear that the days of the emperor and his territory were numbered. Realizing that no aid was forthcoming and that his only chance at survival was to capitulate, David ultimately chose to negotiate a surrender. Talks soon led to the official capitulation of both Emperor David and Trebizond, thus extinguishing the last vestiges of Byzantium as the successor to the once glorious Roman Empire. The complete and awe-inspiring conquest of all that the Greeks had left to call their own stands as one of Mehmed's most celebrated achievements. However, this was just one of many triumphs for the Sultan. Another of Mehmed's most renowned campaigns was his ongoing conflict with the Principality of Wallachia and his intense rivalry with a man he had once known well, Vlad III Dracula. For nearly a century after its founding, the Ottomans had persistently sought to bring Wallachia under their influence, if not direct control. At the same time, the Ottoman Empire's fierce adversaries in Hungary were also striving to subjugate Wallachia by placing their own puppets on the throne. This tug of war turned Wallachia into two things: a buffer zone between powerful enemies and a land plagued by constant turmoil and shifting leadership. Even during Mehmed's childhood, Wallachia had been a source of trouble for Sultan Murad II on several occasions. Distrust of its ruler Voivode Vlad II Dracul led Murad to summon the leader and detain his two youngest sons as political hostages. These sons, Radu III and Vlad III Dracula, would henceforth grow alongside Mehmed. Following the deaths of Vlad II and his eldest son Mircea II, the Ottomans recognized the need to act swiftly to install a new voivode in Wallachia who would be loyal to their interests before the Hungarians could do the same. Despite Vlad III being somewhat troublesome during his time in Ottoman custody, unlike his brother Radimora chose Vlad, the elder of the two, to succeed their father. Vlad III's first stint as voivode of Wallachia was short-lived. His Hungarian-backed cousin, Vladislav II, overthrew him after only a month. As the mid-15th century progressed, Wallachia remained a battleground, up for grabs once more as the Ottomans and Hungarians continued to vie for control. In 1456, Vlad III once again ascended to the Wallachian throne, this time with the backing of Hungary. Despite Mehmed now leading the Ottoman Empire, the idea that Vlad might at least tolerate the Ottomans as a vassal didn't seem far-fetched, considering that the two had been allies and even childhood companions. Had Radu been in Vlad's position, this might have been the case. But Vlad I held a very different view from his brother. He harbored a deep-seated hatred for the Ottomans. Any forgiveness he might have had was already spent on his former enemy, John Hunyadi, for the role he played in Vlad's father's death. Mehmed, however, would receive no such mercy. By the late 1450s, Wallachia had ceased paying tribute to the Sultan, and by 1462, Vlad had initiated open war against the Ottomans. Mehmed's victory over Vlad I may have come later than he anticipated or desired, but eventually did come. After a grueling conflict that nearly forced the Sultan into retreat, Radu was finally placed on the Wallachian throne in his elder brother's stead as the summer drew to a close. Mehmed was confident that this son of Dracul would remain loyal. Except for a brief period in 1476, when Vlad I reclaimed the principality and a turbulent series of depositions and reinstatements between Radu and another relative, Basarab-Leota, the Ottomans had effectively secured control over Wallachia, allowing them to turn their attention to other conquests. Soon after his success in Wallachia, Mehmed the Conqueror once again lived up to his title by annexing the Kingdom of Bosnia. His invasion led to a swift victory and the execution of Bosnia's king, demonstrating that Mehmed's ambitions extended westward as well as into the Eastern Balkans. His expansionary campaign soon brought him into conflict with the Venetians, leading to an all-out war. The Venetians, allied with Matthias Corvinus of Hungary, the son of Mehmed's old adversary, John Hunyadi, invaded Ottoman-held Morea and Bosnia. 3 years into this prolonged conflict, Mehmed came face to face with the legendary Skanderbeg of Albania, yet another former political hostage of the Ottoman Empire. Although disease eventually aided the Ottomans in their struggle against the Albanians, the war itself would rage on for a total of 15 years. It was only in 1479, with the signing of the Treaty of Constantinople, that Mehmed secured victory. The treaty weakened the Venetians and required them to pay a yearly tribute to the Ottomans for trading rights in the Black Sea. Once again, the Sultan had proven his worth as a conqueror. But Mehmed's ambitions didn't end there. By this time, the Ottomans had established a firm hold over Anatolia and had made Moldavia a vassal state, albeit for a short period. Peter III Aron of Moldavia had been one of the first rulers of the principality to agree to pay yearly tribute to the Ottoman Empire, but his successor Stefan cel Mar was staunchly opposed to such an arrangement for much of his life. This predictably led to military conflict between the Ottomans and the new voivode of Moldavia, a war in which Mehmed faced setbacks similar to those he had encountered in Wallachia. However, unlike in Wallachia, Mehmed found no clear path to victory and eventually withdrew from the region. Stephen remained a persistent thorn in the Sultan's side for years to come. As frustrating as the Moldavian campaign may have been, it was but a minor issue in the grand scheme of things. The Ottoman Empire had grown immensely thanks to the efforts of the bold Sultan, expanding both eastward and westward. Failure is not a word commonly associated with Mehmed the Conqueror, and despite the setback in Moldavia, his ambitions remained undeterred. He now turned his gaze toward Italy. It is widely believed that Mehmed's ambitions in Italy extended as far as Rome, a fear shared by both the Pope and the people of Rome. When Otranto fell to an Ottoman invading force, the citizens of Rome braced themselves for the worst, preparing to flee as the specter of Ottoman conquest loomed large. But the conquest of Italy would never come to pass. On May 3rd, 1481, Sultan Mehmed II, the great conqueror of Anatolia and the Balkans, passed away. His dreams of expanding his empire into Italy ended abruptly with his death. The circumstances surrounding his death remain shrouded in mystery. It is believed that the Sultan fell ill a few days before his passing, but some historians suggest a more sinister cause. Poisoning remains a highly suspected theory. Regardless of how he died, the glorious Sultan was gone, leaving behind a legacy of power, wisdom, and cultural achievement. Still known today as the Conqueror, Mehmed lived a life of monumental accomplishments, ensuring that his name would be remembered both at home and across the world for generations to come. When we think of Ottoman sultans, names like Mehmed the Conqueror or Suleiman the Magnificent often come to mind, rulers known for their relentless conquests and legendary reforms. But in between these titans of history stood Bayezid II, a sultan who chose diplomacy over bloodshed, and who ruled with a steady hand in a time of internal division and external threats. Today we explore the reign of Bayezid II, the sultan who inherited an empire and fought to keep it intact. Born in 1447, Bayezid was the son of one of the greatest sultans in Ottoman history, Mehmed II, famously known as Mehmed the Conqueror. Bayezid grew up in a world of political intrigue, military campaigns, and grand visions for Ottoman expansion. He was groomed to one-day rule, but Bayezid's path to power would not be straightforward. While Mehmed II built a reputation as a fearless conqueror, Bayezid's temperament was different. He was more scholarly, more interested in the arts and theology, yet his claim to the throne was anything but peaceful. After his father's death in 1481, Bayezid ascended to the throne, but not without facing immediate opposition. Bayezid's younger brother, Sem Sultan, believed he had an equal right to the throne. What followed was one of the most tense internal conflicts in the early Ottoman Empire, known as the Sem Sultan crisis. If you're captivated by stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Ancient Perspectives for more epic tales of history's greatest figures and moments. Hit the bell icon to never miss an adventure into the past. Sem sought the support of European powers. Sem's presence in Europe became a significant problem for Bayezid as Western powers attempted to use Sem as a bargaining chip to weaken the Ottoman Empire. Bayezid's solution? Diplomacy. Rather than pursue an all-out civil war, Bayezid made deals with European rulers, paying ransom to keep Sem in captivity, far away from Ottoman lands. In the end, Bayezid managed to stabilize his rule through a mix of financial diplomacy and patience. The Sem Sultan crisis never evolved into full-scale civil war, but it haunted Bayezid for much of his early reign, distracting him from the broader challenges his empire faced. Unlike his father, Bayezid II was not a man obsessed with expansion. Instead, he focused on consolidation and internal reforms. He believed in strengthening the core of the empire's administration, economy, and military infrastructure. Bayezid's reign was marked by significant investment in public works. From roads to mosques to bridges, he expanded the empire's infrastructure, making it easier to govern and maintain. His reforms brought stability to the Ottoman state after decades of rapid territorial expansion under Mehmed II. Bayezid also took a more spiritual approach to his reign. Unlike his father's aggressive military campaigns, Bayezid preferred fostering alliances through diplomacy and maintaining peace within the empire. His piety earned him respect from the ulema, the religious scholars, and he sought to harmonize the different ethnic and religious groups under Ottoman rule. Bayezid II was a devout Muslim, often seen in prayer or supporting religious institutions. He worked closely with Islamic scholars and promoted Sufi orders, believing in the unification of faith and state, but perhaps one of his greatest legacies was his role in offering refuge to a people in need. In 1492, when the Spanish Inquisition forced Jews out of Spain, Bayezid II famously invited these refugees to settle in Ottoman lands. Thousands of Jews fled to the empire, finding safety and freedom to practice their religion in cities like Istanbul and Salonika. Bayezid is quoted as saying, "How can you call Ferdinand of Spain wise? He impoverishes his own country to enrich mine." This act of compassion would leave a lasting mark on Ottoman society, as these Jewish communities contributed greatly to the empire's culture and economy. Though Bayezid II is often remembered as a sultan of peace, he did not shy away from military engagements when necessary. His reign saw an increased focus on the Ottoman navy, a move that positioned the empire as a dominant power in the Mediterranean. Bayezid's primary military focus was on securing the empire's western borders and ensuring control over key naval routes. The Ottomans faced rising challenges from the Venetians and Mamluks, but Bayezid's careful balancing act of diplomacy and military strength allowed him to maintain control of vital territories. Under his reign, the Ottoman fleet expanded significantly, and his campaigns in the Balkans and the Mediterranean further solidified Ottoman influence. However, these campaigns were largely defensive or retaliatory, as Bayezid sought to avoid the large-scale conflicts that had defined his father's reign. As Bayezid II aged, his grip on power began to loosen. A new threat was emerging, not from foreign powers, but from within his own family. His son Selim was ambitious, militaristic, and eager to seize power. Selim, later known as Selim the Grim, believed that the Ottoman Empire needed to return to its expansionist roots. Tensions between father and son grew, as Selim rallied support among the military and threatened Bayezid's peaceful policies. By 1512, the conflict reached a breaking point. Under pressure from his own son and the military, Bayezid II was forced to abdicate the throne, making way for Selim I's rise to power. After this video, you can check out my video on the reign of Selim the Grim. Bayezid retired to Demotika, where he would spend his final days in seclusion. Bayezid II's reign may not have been as flashy as his father's conquests or his son's military campaigns, but it was vital to the survival of the Ottoman Empire. He stabilized the empire during a time of internal division, promoted religious and cultural harmony, and left behind a legacy of diplomacy and compassion. Bayezid II's reign laid the groundwork for the expansion that would come under his son, Selim the Grim, and later under his grandson, Suleiman the Magnificent. His focus on consolidation, infrastructure, and culture created the bedrock for the Ottoman Empire's golden age. Bayezid II may not have been the conqueror his father was, but he was the guardian of the empire, a ruler who understood the power of diplomacy, faith, and balance. His story is a reminder that sometimes preserving what has been built is just as important as building it in the first place. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories of history's forgotten figures who shaped the world. Here's a fun fact: Bayezid I was also known for his incredible calligraphy. His love for art led to the flourishing of Ottoman miniatures and manuscript arts. Talk about a ruler with a personal touch. If you're captivated by stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Ancient Perspectives for more epic tales of history's greatest figures and moments. Hit the bell icon to never miss an adventure into the past. From 1512 to 1520, Selim I, also known as Selim the Grim or Selim the Resolute, oversaw a time of tremendous development for the Ottoman Empire. Selim expanded the frontiers of the Ottoman Empire into the heart of the Muslim world, capturing the Levant, Egypt, and the Hejaz area of the Western Arabian Peninsula. Selim the Grim increased the Ottoman Empire's size by 70% in just 8 years. This phenomenal development created a firm basis for his successor, Suleiman the Magnificent, to advance Ottoman authority into southeastern and central Europe. Disputes arose early in the 16th century between the Ottoman Empire and the Safavid Empire of Persia, which bordered to the east. The Safavids were a new Persian dynasty established by Ismail I, who intended to distinguish himself by establishing authority over huge expanses of land in the Middle East. But it was not only a territorial struggle. The Safavids were mostly Shia, in contrast to the Sunni Ottomans. While vying for political dominance, each power also desired religious dominance, and they would resort to using one to obtain the other. In an effort to weaken the Ottomans, the Safavids backed up Shia insurgencies in the Ottoman Empire's eastern provinces. Selim's accession to the head of the Ottoman Empire was not assured by birth. Inheritance by strength was a practice of the Ottomans. After their father died, Ottoman princes had a race against the clock to be the first to Constantinople, the capital, and win over the officials and soldiers so they could take the throne. It was usual for competing claims to go to battle with each other, until the strongest one killed out all of his kin. While this arrangement had the advantage of shielding the kingdom against an incompetent, who would inherit by mere virtue of birth order, it came at the cost of the tranquility of the realm every few generations. We know little about Selim's boyhood, although it is apparent he was thoroughly taught in soldiering and generalship. He was assigned leadership of Trabzon, a city on the Black Sea in modern Turkey. He showed his military bona fides during his governorship, frequently repelling invading Safavid forces and leading a successful war to seize part of the kingdom of Georgia in 1508. If you're captivated by stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Ancient Perspectives for more epic tales of history's greatest figures and moments. Hit the bell icon to never miss an adventure into the past. By 1512, Bayezid II had lost control of not just his advisors, but also his sons, as each sought to set the basis for their political careers. The Ottoman administration was riven with factions and intrigue, with viziers and other top officials often supporting one royal prince over another brother. These court divisions continuously sought methods to discredit one claimant over another. Shehzadeh Ahmed, Selim's elder brother, sought to usurp the throne while Selim was battling in Crimea. In response, Selim and his army went across the Black Sea and recruited additional warriors for their cause. Bayezid II was compelled to abdicate on the 25th of April 1512, when Selim's soldiers invaded Constantinople. The former sultan was transported to Dimitoka, in what is now northern Greece, to retire in what amounted to a pleasant house arrest. He died less than a month after his abdication. Selim then had to secure his position from his brother and nephew. Following a humiliating loss at the Battle of Bursa, Ahmet was captured. Ahmet's son, Sezed Morad, escaped to the Safavid Empire, but never had the backing to undertake a battle against his uncle. He died in 1519. Selim ordered the killing of all his remaining brothers and nephews to secure his position as Sultan of the Ottomans. In preparation for an invasion of Persia, Selim attacked the Ottoman rebels and their Persian supporters who had troubled his father's rule. Assembling the Janissary Corps, the elite slave troops of the Ottomans, Selim rapidly proceeded into eastern Anatolia and murdered every male Shia in his domain. This terrible operation was the preliminary phase for a battle with the Safavids. Hostile letters were exchanged between Salim I and Ismail I in the lead up to the fight. At one point, Salim accused his adversary as drinking too much that it damaged his intellect and made him overlook the business of state. Selim led the Janissaries into Safavid Azerbaijan, aiming for a final clash. Shah Ismail had the benefits of a far bigger army and steadier sources of reinforcements and supplies, but lacked muskets, which the Ottomans did. Chaldiran in August 1514, Selim overwhelmed the greater Safavid army and forced Ismail, who was also wounded in the fighting, to depart the battlefield. Selim's belief in gunpowder armament and Ismail's disdain of its potential power proved pivotal. The Ottomans took the Persian capital of Tabriz shortly thereafter, with Selim making his victorious arrival on the 5th of September. With the Safavid Persians defeated, Selim next moved his army against another Middle Eastern opponent, the Mamluk Sultanate of Egypt. The Mamluks shared a same cultural heritage with the Ottomans. In past ages, they too had been slave troops dispatched from Central Asia by the Abbasid Empire to attack their foes along the boundaries. The Mamluks acquired control of Egypt and then rapidly conquered the Levant as well as the western coast of the Arabian Peninsula. By the early 1500s, they effectively dominated Mecca, and Medina as well as Jews and Christians were under Mamluk hands. In late 1515, Selim began to build up his Janissary soldiers on the Mamluk-Ottoman frontier. Following lengthy preparation, the Ottomans marched into Syria to fight the Mamluk garrisons in the countryside. The Battle of Marjadebik, fought on the 25th of August 1516, provided the Ottomans a clear way to Egypt. The Sultan led his army into Egypt, crushing the main Mamluk army at the Battle of Ridania on the 22nd of January 1517. The Ottoman Grand Vizier was slain in the conflict, but the last Mamluk Sultan's head was hanged from the gates of Cairo to signify their loss. Having given such a strong message, Selim opted to have the remaining members of the Mamluk government swear devotion to himself and the Ottoman Empire rather than construct a whole new administration. This is a fairly old strategy of keeping control over conquered territory by successfully ensuring the current local legal, tax and administration systems operate smoothly. The triumph over the Mamluks also brought with it a new title for the Ottoman Sultan, guardian of Mecca and Medina. This new status symbolizes the beginning of the Muslim world until the demise of the Ottoman Empire in 1918. They controlled the principal pilgrimage routes to the holy towns of Mecca and Medina, which millions of Muslims utilize for the annual Hajj. Salim's military conquests were also followed by large-scale economic programs. Following the Ottoman triumph over the Safavid Persians, Selim ordered a comprehensive embargo against his Shia adversaries. They exploited their monopoly over the land trade routes that spanned over the Middle East, as well as control of the Red Sea, the Eastern Mediterranean, and the Black Sea, to choke the Safavid connection to the international economy. The supply of commercial products coming from the Far East to Western Europe had to transit via Ottoman territory. Another key characteristic of Selim's reign was his lack of tolerance for inefficient viziers and other Ottoman officials. Having observed firsthand the impact of court politics, Selim purged those persons who worked for personal power and influence rather than guaranteeing the continuous running and development of the empire. Many viziers were killed by Selim for not living up to his severe requirements, leading to a traditional curse, "May you become one of Selim's viziers." This may have been a reign of terror against the administrators, but it did ensure that the Ottoman Empire remained internally stable. It also provided the framework for Suleiman the Magnificent, Selim's son and successor, to have a smoother transfer to power. Selim was also canny in foreign politics. He sought out to the Indian Mughal Empire and successfully negotiated a military and economic alliance against the Safavid Persians. The Mughals bordered the eastern side of the Safavid Empire, and they aimed to conquer additional land at the latter's expense. It also helped since the Mughals were Sunni Muslims, exactly like the Ottomans. Together, they sought to guarantee that the commerce routes flowing via the Persian lands dried up. Selim should also be honored for his cultural achievements, as well as military ones. He was proficient in both Turkish and Persian, and while not on battle, produced a great quantity of poetry. He also supported the notion of the printing press to promote key works while further ensuring a flourishing classical transcribing business. This helped to make Constantinople a hub of cultural and educational interaction. Selim died on the 22nd of September 1520 after a brief illness. Though his rule lasted less than a decade, his persistent attempts to bring as much land under his control as possible ensured that his son and heir, Suleiman, could have so successful a reign as to be granted the title Magnificent. In a time marked by the rise and fall of empires, where the conflict of civilizations rang through the centuries, there emerged a solitary spark. In the center of this dynamic moment stood a man both visionary and fighter, whose name would become associated with splendor. Born in 6 November 1494, he followed the traditional course of succession within the Ottoman Empire. Educated in several areas including poetry, philosophy, and the military arts, he polished his talents under direction of instructors. Before taking into the role of Sultan in 1520, Suleiman had already shown himself as a powerful military leader during his father Selim's rule. Suleiman actively engaged in several conflicts, displaying his strategic ability on the battlefield. By the time he gained the throne, Suleiman had secured his status as a significant role in Ottoman military activities. These early experiences substantially shaped his leadership style, providing the framework for the massive military conflicts that would characterize his own rule. Suleiman's ascent to power signaled the start of a revolutionary period for the Ottoman Empire. If you're captivated by stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Ancient Perspectives for more epic tales of history's greatest figures and moments. Hit the bell icon to never miss an adventure into the past. Beyond the normal goal of conquering lands, Suleiman aspired to shape the empire based on his deep-founded values and principles. His vision was grounded in a desire to assert Ottoman dominance, not just as a political force, but also as a defender of the Islamic faith. As a devoted Muslim, Suleiman considered the Christian West as a possible danger to the Islamic world. The Ottoman Empire was positioned between Europe and Asia, therefore Suleiman's military assaults against Christian areas were driven not just by theological disagreements, but also by a careful analysis of political and strategic issues. In 1521, marking his maiden war as Sultan, Suleiman the Magnificent led the Ottoman Empire into a key period during the siege of Belgrade, a city strategically placed inside the lands of Hungary. This key metropolis served as a major connection between Ottoman lands and the core of Europe. Suleiman's strategic talents shone through as Ottoman forces were able to carry out a brilliant campaign, reaching its pinnacle with the victorious seizure of Belgrade. This win not only displayed Suleiman's might but also exposed the helplessness of Hungarian authorities to defend themselves against the expansionist policies of the Ottoman Empire. Similarly, the siege of Rhodes in 1522 highlighted his intention to ensure Ottoman control in the Mediterranean. A Christian military order recognized for their role in giving care to pilgrims emerged as a significant obstacle to Ottoman maritime ambitions. Suleiman's unrelenting pursuit of expansion, but also underscored the Ottoman Empire's expanding importance in critical maritime channels, further strengthening its place as a significant power in the Mediterranean. As Suleiman increased his dominance, Hungary, having witnessed his earlier success at the Battle of Belgrade, became a focal point. The Battle of Mohacs in 1526 represented another triumph for Suleiman, consolidating his dominance in the region. Following this conquest, Suleiman strategically selected John Zapoya, a high-ranking Transylvanian lord, as a vassal ruler, understanding the delicate balance of power. John Zapoya's alliance with Ottoman interests and his local power made him a feasible choice, but this move added to the already complicated regional politics. Suleiman's antipathy for the Habsburgs, notably Ferdinand, the Christian ruler of the Holy Roman Empire, rapidly rose during this era. Ferdinand was battling for power in Mohacs, contributing to the poor ties between Suleiman and the Habsburgs. Suleiman's military expeditions into Hungary and Austria displayed not simply physical power, but strategic skill and intense conflicts. His men negotiated rough terrain, utilizing flexible army paths to outmaneuver the adversary. Despite encountering losses, Suleiman's battles left an enduring influence on European history. Suleiman's vision stretched beyond the limits of Europe, directing his attention to the east. The Ottoman-Safavid rivalry played out in a succession of fascinating wars. The Battle of Chaldiran in 1514 stood out as a significant turning point. His military exploits were highlighted by a remarkable ability to negotiate and exploit the different terrains of Persia, displaying the versatility and agility of the Ottoman armies. His strategic ability were obvious in the way Ottoman soldiers efficiently maneuvered across hilly mountains and parched deserts, modifying their tactics to fit to the demands given by the diverse Persian geography. Beyond flexibility, Suleiman exhibited an aptitude in creating and sustaining essential supply networks. The Ottoman military, under his leadership, maintained a regular supply of supplies to sustain the Ottoman forces in remote and tough countries. This logistical ability played a crucial part in the repeated success of Ottoman battles in Persia. Moreover, Suleiman exploited the terrain to his advantage. Ottoman soldiers deliberately positioned themselves using natural features for camping, mounting ambushes and commanding vital spots. This utilization of the terrain not only gained tactical advantages over their foes, but also contributed to the overall success of Ottoman military operations. Suleiman led a diversified military, bringing together foot soldiers, horses and artillery to function well in the different and unpredictable Persian terrains. Suleiman's military success in the Ottoman-Safavid battles in Persia was influenced by his astute use of routes, agility, managing supplies properly, and strategic location. Suleiman's presence and strategic intelligence made a lasting influence on the evolving saga of the Ottoman-Safavid struggle in the east. Beyond the battlefields, Suleiman was a visionary leader. Suleiman put into place enduring political changes, and one notable success was the creation of the Kanun-i-Osmani, a complete legal code. This code has two uses. The first was to secure justice in his domain, and the second was to ensure that his government functioned in an efficient manner. Suleiman's purpose was to achieve this by reducing legal procedures, boosting administrative openness, and to build a fairer society through the codification of laws. He developed the Kanun-i-Osmani to promote efficient government and a just legal system, creating a lasting legacy that affected the Ottoman legal framework for years. In addition to his military and political accomplishments, Suleiman helped the Ottoman Empire become economically prosperous. One significant approach he utilized to achieve this was to enhance trade and commerce. Recognizing the Ottoman kingdom's excellent location between Europe and Asia, Suleiman took measures to exploit this position in order to offer economic gain to his kingdom. For example, he spent in building infrastructure, such roads and bridges, making it simpler for products to travel around the empire. Suleiman also reinforced the Ottoman fleet to safeguard major sea lanes, boosting maritime trade. Beyond domestic efforts, he created diplomatic relations to boost commerce with other partners, turning the Ottoman Empire into a busy hub for the trading of spices, textiles, and other valuable items, attracting merchants from Europe, Asia, and Africa. Suleiman's concentration on infrastructure, naval might, and foreign connections established an atmosphere that promoted economic expansion. The increasing riches not only assisted the administration, but also made the Ottoman Empire more culturally and intellectually lively throughout his rule. Suleiman's personal life was distinguished by interesting events, notably the drama involving his son Mustafa. Once a possible successor, Mustafa tragically fell out of favor under circumstances surrounded by political intrigue and charges of conspiracy. The actual facts leading to Mustafa's downfall remain unclear, with various historical versions. In 1553, Suleiman took the terrible decision to order the execution of his own son, a choice that rang across the Ottoman court. Historians discuss the causes behind Mustafa's fall, examining elements such as political maneuvering inside the court and probable external influences. The aftermath of Mustafa's unfortunate demise increased complication to the Ottoman court dynamics. The battle between Suleiman's surviving sons, Selim and Bayezid, grew as they desired the throne, but not without the residual worry of meeting a destiny akin to Mustafa's death. Throughout this dynastic conflict, the uncertainties and hazards connected with contending for the throne formed the complicated power battles inside the Ottoman Empire. Eventually, Selim emerged as the successor, becoming Sultan Selim II. This portion of the empire's history was significant in establishing where the empire would go next, shaping what Suleiman's descendants would be famous for. As Suleiman's rule ended in 1566, his impact spread well beyond military and political successes. His legacy on the Ottoman Empire comprised a rich cultural, artistic and architectural heritage. Under Suleiman, the empire became a center for Islamic knowledge, supporting cultural interaction and intellectual pursuits. Artistically, his age prospered with contributions to literature, music and visual arts. Suleiman himself was a great poet, adding to the literary riches of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman court prospered as a creative hotspot, attracting talents from around the empire. Architecturally, Suleiman's rule is characterized by the Suleimani Mosque. Commissioned by him, the mosque serves as a testimony to his passion to the arts. Its great architecture, towering domes and graceful minarets merge Ottoman and Islamic forms, leaving an unforgettable impact on Ottoman aesthetics. Suleiman the Magnificent was more than a conqueror. He was a statesman, a visionary and a complicated character, navigating the stormy currents of his time. If you're captivated by stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Ancient Perspectives for more epic tales of history's greatest figures and moments. Hit the bell icon to never miss an adventure into the past. In a dynasty of conquerors, rulers, and warriors, Selim II stood apart. He was not a man of the battlefield, nor a reformer of great systems. His reign was marked by luxury, leisure, and one defining indulgence: wine. Today, we dive into the life of a sultan whose rule was as unorthodox as it was consequential. Selim II was born in 1524 into the heart of the Ottoman Empire at the peak of its power. His father, Suleiman the Magnificent, was one of the greatest sultans in Ottoman history, and his mother, Hurrem Sultan, was equally influential. Growing up, Selim was surrounded by not only wealth and luxury, but also the pressures of being a prince in an empire that spanned 3 continents. Unlike his warrior father, Selim's interest lay more in the palace's pleasures than in the harsh realities of governance or military campaigns. His childhood and youth were spent largely in the company of poets, artists, and the court's elite, and his relationship with his mother shaped much of his worldview. As the favorite son of Hurrem Sultan, Selim avoided the battlefield in favor of more intellectual and leisurely pursuits. While Selim enjoyed a relatively peaceful youth, the struggle for succession was always lurking in the background. After all, Selim was not the only son of Suleiman the Magnificent. His brothers, particularly the warrior Prince Mustafa, were seen as more suitable heirs to the empire. The rivalry between Selim and his brothers culminated in the infamous execution of Mustafa in 1553, orchestrated by... If you're captivated by stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Ancient Perspectives for more epic tales of history's greatest figures and moments. Hit the bell icon to never miss an adventure into the past. Orchestrated by Hurrem Sultan and her allies. With Mustafa out of the way, Selim became the de facto heir, but his rise to power would not be smooth. After his father's death in 1566, Selim ascended to the throne, becoming the 11th Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. Selim's ascension marked the end of an era of warrior sultans. Unlike his predecessors, Selim had no desire for military campaigns. His focus was on maintaining the empire his father had built and enjoying the luxuries of the palace. Selim II's reputation as Selim the Drunkard did not come from his policies or conquests, it came from his personal indulgences. He was infamous for his love of wine, particularly the sweet vintages of Cyprus. Selim's fondness for alcohol was well known throughout the empire. The Sultan's drinking habits were so legendary that it was said he preferred wine to any affairs of state. His indulgence led to the expansion of Cyprus wine trade, and it's rumored that his decision to conquer the island was influenced by his desire to control its vineyards. Despite his reputation as a man of leisure, Selim I did not completely neglect the empire's military interests. Although he personally avoided the battlefield, his reign saw one of the most pivotal naval battles in history, the Battle of Lepanto in 1571. Under Selim's orders, the Ottoman navy sought to expand the empire's influence across the Mediterranean. At Lepanto, however, the Ottomans faced a coalition of Christian forces led by Spain, Venice, and the Papal States. The Battle of Lepanto was a crushing defeat for the Ottoman navy, marking the first major loss for the empire's naval forces in over a century. Though the loss at Lepanto did not immediately halt Ottoman expansion, it was a significant blow to the empire's dominance in the Mediterranean. While Selim II is often remembered for his personal vices, his reign was marked by relative peace and stability within the empire. Much of the credit for this goes to Sokolu Mehmet Pasha, Selim's Grand Vizier, who was one of the most capable administrators in Ottoman history. Selim II trusted his viziers to handle the complexities of state. Sokolu Mehmet Pasha managed the empire's affairs, from tax reforms to military campaigns, allowing Selim to enjoy his lavish lifestyle. The Grand Vizier was so influential that many believed he was the true ruler of the empire during Selim's reign. Sokolu's expertise ensured the empire's continued stability and even allowed for some notable victories, such as the conquest of Cyprus in 1571. Under his guidance, the empire expanded and thrived economically, even as the Sultan remained detached from the day-to-day operations of governance. Selim II's reign also saw one of the Ottoman Empire's greatest architectural achievements, the Selimiye Mosque in Edir. Built under the guidance of the legendary architect Mimar Sinan, this mosque is considered a masterpiece of Ottoman architecture. Though Selim may not have been a great conqueror, his reign left a lasting mark on Ottoman culture. The Selimiye Mosque stands today as a testament to his legacy and enduring symbol of the empire's artistic and architectural brilliance. Selim II's reign came to an end in 1574. After 8 years on the throne, the Sultan who had preferred the pleasures of the palace over the blood-soaked fields of battle passed away in Topkapi Palace. Though Selim II's reign was not marked by the monumental conquests of his father, it was a period of relative peace and economic prosperity. Yet, the legacy of Selim the Drunkard would forever be tied to his personal indulgences and the rise of the Ottoman court's influence over its rulers. So was Selim II an ineffective ruler lost in luxury? Or was his reign a sign of the changing nature of Ottoman power? His rule may have lacked military heroics, but his cultural and architectural legacy endures. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more deep dives into history's most fascinating figures. Here's a fun fact for those who stayed till the end. Legend has it that Selim II loved Cyprus wine so much that he considered it the nectar of the gods. Could his fondness for the island's wine have played a role in its conquest? What do you think? Was Selim a man ruled by his passions, or simply a sultan with refined tastes? Power isn't just given, it's taken. And for Mehmed III, his path to the throne was paved with blood. A young sultan, haunted by the shadows of his own family, forced to make choices that would define him forever. And one of those choices was the death of 19 of his own brothers. A massacre in the name of survival, the most infamous fratricide in Ottoman history. His reign saw triumphs on the battlefield, but it was the tragedy within the palace walls that marked his legacy. Mehmed III is a warrior ruler and a man consumed by the darkest Ottoman tradition. This is his story: power, betrayal, and tragedy. Today we dive into the life of Mehmed III, one of the most controversial sultans of the Ottoman Empire. Mehmed III was born in 1566 to Sultan Murad III and his powerful consort, Safiye Sultan. His reign would go down in history for both military triumphs and infamous family tragedy. Growing up in the harem, Mehmed lived a life of luxury, but behind the palace walls, there was a darker side. The Ottoman Empire was already a global superpower, but internally, the court was a battlefield of politics and intrigue. Mehmed's mother, Safiye Sultan, played a key role in the politics of the empire. She wielded immense influence and ensured her son would one day sit on the throne. But it wasn't an easy path. As Mehmed grew older, he saw the impact of power up close. His father, Sultan Murad III, died in 1595, and Mehmed became the 13th Sultan of the empire. But his accession to the throne came with a horrifying tradition, one that would stain his legacy forever. In the twilight of his father's death, Mehmed III ascended to the throne in 1595. But with his newfound power came an ancient, brutal tradition that haunted every new sultan: fratricide. Imagine, you are Mehmed III, the weight of an empire on your shoulders. You've just become the most powerful man in the Ottoman world. But you know what must come next. It's not a coronation, it's not a celebration, it's the elimination of your bloodline. The brothers of Mehmed III, 19 in total, were all potential rivals to the throne. In the chaotic politics of the Ottoman Empire, any of them could be used as pawns in a rebellion. The law of fratricide, introduced generations before, dictated that these brothers must die to secure the stability of the empire. That night, the order was given. Eunuchs, trained in the art of silent death, moved through the palace like shadows, their footsteps muffled by thick carpets. The brothers of Mehmed, many still children, had been confined to the caves, a secluded part of the palace where they lived in isolation. The younger brothers didn't understand. How could they? Some were too young to even know of the deadly politics swirling around them. But for the eunuchs, there was no room for hesitation. They had one purpose: to ensure the survival of the Sultan by carrying out these unspeakable acts. Imagine the scene. Brothers, some awake, others still asleep, pulled from their beds. No screams, no cries, just silence. If you're captivated by stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Ancient Perspectives for more epic tales of history's greatest figures and moments. Hit the bell icon to never miss an adventure into the past. It was said that Mehmed himself couldn't bear to watch, instead staying in his chambers as his brothers' lives were extinguished one by one. By the end of the night, 19 bodies lay cold, 19 of his own blood. In the eyes of the empire, Mehmed III had secured his throne, but at what cost? This was a rite of passage for sultans, but for Mehmed, it would be a shadow that lingered throughout his reign. Historians debate whether Mehmed III was driven by the cold necessity of power, or whether the decision broke something inside him. This was a man who inherited an empire, but it's said he also inherited a curse, the ghosts of the brothers he sacrificed for stability. This act of fratricide, though not uncommon in Ottoman history, remains one of the most infamous. It was an event that would define Mehmed's legacy as both a necessary evil and a haunting tragedy. Though Mehmed's reign was marked by internal strife, he achieved military victories that secured the empire's dominance. The most significant of these was the Battle of Kerestes in 1596. The Ottomans were locked in battle with the Habsburgs in Hungary. Mehmed, inexperienced in warfare, relied heavily on his Grand Vizier, Sigalazad Sinan Pasha. At the Battle of Kerestes, the Ottomans seemed on the brink of defeat, but they miraculously turned the tide and secured a crucial victory. But despite this success, Mehmed did not share his predecessor's passion for leading troops in person. Unlike the warrior sultans before him, Mehmed ruled from the safety of his palace, leaving military affairs largely to his generals. Although Mehmed III won battles abroad, his empire faced growing internal challenges. Corruption within the court and economic instability were on the rise. The political influence of his mother, Safiye Sultan, also caused tension. Many of the empire's ministers believed that the Sultan was being controlled by the women of the harem. The end of Mehmed III's reign saw the Ottomans struggling to maintain their vast territories. Rebellions in the provinces, including Egypt and Anatolia, were becoming more frequent, signaling that the once unshakable Ottoman power was beginning to falter. In 1603, after an 8-year reign, Mehmed III died at the age of 37. His time as Sultan was brief, but filled with both triumph and tragedy. Mehmed's legacy remains complex. He was a ruler who won significant military victories, but his name is often remembered for the fratricide that began his reign. The palace still stands, but within its walls, echoes of the past linger. The decision Mehmed made that night secured his reign, but it left behind a legacy of sorrow. So, what do you think of Mehmed III's reign? A story of power and loss, war and shadow. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like, subscribe and hit the bell for more deep dives into history's most fascinating figures. If you're captivated by stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Ancient Perspectives for more epic tales of history's greatest figures and moments. Hit the bell icon to never miss an adventure into the past.